what are three things that new e-commerce businesses should be focusing on the early stage? It is like, right, you cannot start without one of these three things. What, Adam, to you, what would you say the three things that you'd be like, you've got to be doing these three things in the very early days, just off the top of your head?
I think, look, from my point of view, I always say the same thing to brand new businesses: spend as much as you possibly can on product photography. And it's always the thing that lets down sites, because ultimately, look, and I'm sure Chris, you look at the mechanics of a basic Shopify store. You can get a pretty decent store from a basic thing now if you're starting out, but the photography is really something that kind of sets it apart. So for me, making sure that you get decent product photography to start off with is really critical, because that really lets down a lot of stores, I think, in that initial look and feel of the site. And I think, ultimately, as well as I think the other problem as well is make sure you do some maths, because ultimately, again, we see it where, we've had brands that have started as mom and pop shops and they've gone all the way up to maybe 10 million. And that's the first time they look at their profit margins on each individual product. So check your products and think about how much you're going to make before you get them out. So that's the main two for me that I would like to throw in the mix.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Presentation is just key, right? It's how you see all these people now going around like thrift stores and going around car boots and stuff, and it looks like a shambles on a table, but they put it up onto eBay and Amazon or whatever with lovely photos, and it goes for 3 or 4 times the price. Great tips, Chris.
Well, Adam stole one of mine, so that was a great start. But it always happens. But profitability is an important thing. Like, I think I would always start with product first. If we take it as read that the merchants we've got have got a good product and they know it's going to win, you need to understand where to sell that product. Because you can get products everywhere now, Amazon, eBay, marketplaces, you can find things. Once you've got a product, you need to know where to sell it. So which channels are you going to activate? Google's more difficult than it's ever been, and your marketing spend gets eaten away quite quickly. So using acquisition channels like social and Facebook are totally different to what it was, or even a couple of years ago. So you really need to look at where you're going to be successful with that product, because not every product works the same across the channels. I would also say if you go on website, you go on D2C directly, investing correctly in that site build, like you said there, Adam. You can get really good looking sites quickly now off Shopify. If you go back 5-10 years ago when people were building on Magento and other platforms, it was hard and people were doing HTML to make things look better themselves. Like, that time's gone. We've all got AI at our fingertips now to build websites. Sorry, Adam, you flinched when I said AI.
I was nodding. I mean, it looked like a flinch, Chris, but yeah, I'm nodding. And obviously, look, on the AI front, we had this announcement about Lovable and Shopify, so didn't we, as well?
Yeah, so all of that makes it so much easier now to create a site that looks better. But I always say to any of our staff and to merchants is, just because you've got these things there, you still need help to make sure you do it correctly. I often find any system you implement, if it's like we've implemented Jira and HubSpot, even though we can do it ourselves, doesn't mean we should do it ourselves, because we'll do it wrong. And when you're in the e-commerce space, you use somebody to give you some help to make sure you set it up for success for longer term. It's like how you set your website and your structure and your departments is super important for the long term. So that could be an agency, or it could be a freelancer or somebody. I always think getting that right at the beginning, understanding how your site's set up, like Adam said, product is key. So you have to make sure the product photography, all the content is really good. And then where you're going to take that product to and how you're going to advertise it, what that is going to look like for your P&L. So you really need to understand what your budgets are for marketing. Because again, similar to Adam's story, I see a lot of companies who go through a growth curve of, start up, going into scale up, and they don't really quite understand if they're making money and where they're making the money. So trying to get that done early to allow you to scale is massively important.
Yeah, no, I know. And the thing is, on one hand, you're trying to be competitive because no one knows you. You don't have a reputation. No one knows you. I have to be competitive. I have to compete on price. And then the after minute, it's like, well, okay, well, I've got all this to spend. I can't compete on price. You need to compete on something. That's where maybe a reputation comes in handy.
I think one of the big things for me now in this world is brand reputation, because it can be quite easy to start competing price and discounting, but when you're a new player, like it's try and win and create a brand and loyalty around everything first, and not worry about the price. Try and create a brand and a strategy around keeping that price point.
Yeah, no, key. No, definitely. And I think if you're more trusted and you've got a loyal following base, you don't have to compete on price. You can compete on something else.
Yeah.
It's
a race to the bottom, isn't it? I said, like, everyone we can put products on Amazon and you can see what happens there. But really, we want people D2C and keeping the price point where it needs to be.
No, absolutely. Sam, I thought one of these guys was going to say platform.
Yeah, I thought the first thing was a Shopify site, but hey ho.
You haven't paid him enough.
We've made that assumption, I think.
There we go. You can move on from me now, Neil. That's fine. No, I'm actually going to build on something really interesting Chris said there in terms of just like understanding where you should be going, because I think it's so easy, especially in the day and age of anyone today. Shopify in particular has made it so easy for you to go and try something and start up a business. But to take that from an idea to something that is genuinely a business is such a long road, and making sure that you are really standing out from so much stuff that is out there at the moment, I think is so important. Like Adam raises such a good point of making sure that your, images are, anyone can go and generate an image of a product on ChatGPT and make it look nice now. So what are you doing to stand out in those kinds of areas? And I think if you can get that niche and that standout moment for you early in your mind, that's going to really drive exactly what you're going to do as a business to be able to then have all of your focus on driving traffic to your website, allow your business to be the selling point. And then the rest of it are the things that you worry about and you build on. And then you get to a level where you also need to go and seek expert advice from other places, whether that is small freelance help just to do a little bit of optimization. There's a ton of resources available where you can go and look into those kinds of things, whether it's taking that step up of utilizing specialized agencies like Adam's, like Chris's, but also I'm sure Ika's done a load of testing on the various different brands that he's done as well to do all of that similar. But I think, the core for me is it's so easy to start now. So to take the 1 to 2 almost element of this is to go, I've got something that I'm really passionate about and I think is really good, and I'm going to harness a niche on that kind of thing to then take it forward and build the rest out as you continue to grow that and put your passion into it.
Shopify have got that just low cost to entry, haven't they?
Yeah.
Making it really, really easy for you to fail. They don't want you to fail, but they rather you start and fail than never start at all. So
and also Neil, like there are things that you're going to do that you will fail at. There will be things that you'll mess up along it. That's the best thing that you can do in the early days.
Yeah,
because
true.
the barrier of the cost of that failure in the various different segments of these kinds of businesses doing is so much lower now that you can trial out all of these things and establish yourself and build it forward.
And it's not going to be the end of the way. Like if you make a mistake, opening up a shop and it doesn't go, well, that's it, it's the end of your business. Whereas actually you can make mistakes, it's not the end of the road. And that's when you can maybe go and look for expert advice, right? Go and speak to Chris, Adam, and say, right, okay, well, we did this, we failed. It's not the end of the world, but we want to, do it right this next time.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, Neil, that's what my team get paid to do, is to make mistakes. Because ultimately a lot of CRO about A/B testing is about testing things, and some of those things will win and some of the things will lose, but you can always learn from what you make mistakes at. And I think we just need to kind of accept that the path to greatness in business is not linear. And I think like every single person, on the panel in this webinar will have had successes and failures along the way in their career in various businesses. But obviously social media and places like LinkedIn don't portray that is the case, but it is that jagged curve, isn't it, that we've all probably gone on.
Yeah, I remember you saying on the webinar we did before, where just a small change can make a really big impact. It could be a color, it could be adding in, your returns policy, or it could be, we're now on Apple Pay. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit later, but yeah, really interested. Ika, over to you. I wanted to leave you last for this question because I want to know what 3 things that you do, right? And you've got many, many different brands, and I suspect those 3 things have changed over the years. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, Sam mentioned platform Shopify. Like anybody who asks me, it's not even a question. It's not even like a debate. Like, I think you have to go with Shopify, honestly. Like, I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy to go with anything else. It's just so much easier to get with Shopify. But the 3 things that when we're talking about early days, I'm thinking very early days. And for me, what I always say is done is better than perfect. I think some founders, when they start off, they try to make everything perfect before they even launch their first ad or drive their first traffic to the website. And I always think about it that you have to go to market quickly. You have to validate your concepts very quickly. And then you have to go for the things that move the needle a lot, right? So there's no point, sorry about that. There's no point testing, the color of the add to cart button if you don't know if you have a product market fit, right? So number one is done is better than perfect. Go to market quickly and validate concept quickly. Second one is to focus on the marketing and not the product itself. It's going to sound a bit strange, but I've launched many products, and marketing is what drives sales and what brings you revenue, and then you can always improve the product itself. So I always look at the revenue first before I try to perfect the product. Again, same concept as what I said before, is that if you spend a lot of time on working on the product but it doesn't sell, then that doesn't bring much value. And the third thing is to stay lean as long as possible. So I've made this mistake before. I hired a huge team thinking that I'm going to allocate resources and keep them busy all the time, but actually stay lean as long as possible. We are lucky to be in a very asset-light business. With e-commerce, you have, let's say, inventory, but you don't have high fixed costs, right? So try to stay as lean as possible. Try to get to break even as quickly as possible. And then when you when you don't have the capacity to do things yourself or do things with your small team, then expand. So I would recommend people don't try to overreach and build a huge team before they actually have work for that team. So those are the three things that I'm looking at. And lastly, there's this funny saying that first-time founders brag about how big their team is, and I've done that before. And second-time founders brag about how small their team is. Okay, and I strongly believe in that. Okay, small teams that are efficient are the way to win, I think, and not to have huge costs internally.
Yeah, and there's expert out there. You don't need to have those additional costs for employees. There's agencies out there that can help you along the way.
Definitely.
I correct me if I'm wrong. I sort of put like founders in passionate about product or passionate about marketing. And you mentioned there actually concentrate on the market, but you've got a lot of these founders, like they've got this great idea, this great product, and they just concentrate on that. And actually look at the old Betamax and VHS. I don't know if you guys, Chris is probably old enough to remember them. Betamax was a better product than VHS. It's just VHS had better marketing, essentially. Do you remember that, Chris?
Just about. I thought you were going to go back to Blu-rays and HD DVDs. That was more our time. But if you're going all the way back there.
Oh.
Yeah, I fully agree, Neil. I think we talked about before, right? So I think marketing is so important. Now, I think in the long term, you can definitely outcompete your competition with a great product. So I'm sure there's people building great products, which are super, super important. At the beginning, I focus on the marketing to get some traction going and be able to validate these ideas and then to improve the product. But I think, there are founders who are more focused on marketing and product. Yeah.
Cool. Right, next question. What I'm trying to explain is, like, for some of the people that are listening today, is where they might be, is there a way that you say, okay, well, I'm ready to scale? Is like, what's the timeline? Is it like, okay, well, when I get to 100 orders, or when I'm profitable, I need to get to the next level? Is there like a timeline realistic for growth? What sort of like what milestone should you get past in the first 6 to 12 months to, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I want to see if they can identify where they are in that timeline to say, okay, well, I have got 100 clients. I should be doing X, or I should now be looking at an agency, or I should now be doing X, Y, and Z. Is there a timeline of where people should be at certain points within the first 6 to 12 months?
I'll jump in very quickly with a very wishy-washy answer before.
It's a wishy-washy question, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair, exactly. I'll continue the wishy-washy for you, Neil.
Thank you.
What I will set everyone else up for probably to fall over is, I think there is no set timeline or indication of when you do this, now you need to do this. And I think Adam, Chris, and Nick might disagree with me a little bit on it. And I think that there are a lot of triggers that allow you to then go and see, all right, maybe I am at this level that I can go and push with this. But I think the really, really big thing is, there are so many businesses out there, I'm sure everyone has seen, that have tried to grow too quickly and have pushed too much effort into things and have put way too much budget into things when they weren't ready to do that. And also people that are just almost maybe scared to continue pushing it along. I think it's got to be, especially for a lot of the founders that I'm sure are in the room listening in, it's got to be kind of felt by you in a gut feeling of where you feel like you're going on your journey to then build in. Again, I'm building on the wishy-washy stuff with hoping that everyone else brings in some metrics and some ideas around it. But I do think at the heart, it's always going to feel like you've not grown enough to make that decision. So it's just that almost point where you feel good enough to make the next step that will massively dictate where you're going to move on from that. But I'm sure there's many other things that the other guys will be able to say to give you a bit of a better indication for that, as opposed to just pure gut.
Chris, what do you think?
I'll tag in Eka because I think he's the experienced guy in this one and he's living and breathing it. Is that all right, Eka? You go first and I'll follow on from you.
Sure. I do like Sam's answer that, there's no specific dollar amount or time amount that you have to take the next step. I will say one thing that, with e-commerce and with digital marketing, we're in a space where it's definitely marketing driven revenue, right? So we all know it's all about, how far every dollar you spend on marketing, how far can you take it, right? So whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it may be. So in that way, I think that I'm rather aggressive. So usually I look at my brand to say, if it cannot do 20K a month, 30K a month in a few months, then in revenue, then I'm looking at it that maybe it can't grow that much. So I'm a bit aggressive on that front because it's definitely, marketing driven revenue. And that's something that founders can use to their advantage, because once you do validate that you have a product market fit, once you do find your winning offer, your winning proposition, then it's so easy to scale up. So I think when you get like this unit economics right, and when you're profitable per order, then you can really start to take it to the next level. So what I usually do is, I try to make it that I am first order profitable or pretty close to it. And that's when I know that I can push on marketing, I can do CRO, I can improve my ads a bit better, I can improve the website a bit better. So once you get there, when you almost break even or above break even per acquisition, then you can really push. That's for me the differentiator between like scaling or not scaling. Are you profitable on the customers that you do acquire so far? What you think about that, Chris?
Cool. Yeah, that's why I asked you to answer the question, because I thought it was perfect. I think it being the e-commerce person in the space right now, I think it's exactly what I would expect. I was going to pick up on one of the points Neil said about when to use an agency, because I think you mentioned that there, Neil. So if you're exactly right with Eka, when you start making money, and then it's about how you then spend the money. And I think you can start off a bit of test and learn, and there's a piece there when you do need agency experience to help you on that growth curve. And what you'll find is you can do a little bit of it yourself and test it, but the agencies will help move you on. And that's not a fixed, exactly like Sam said, that's not a fixed value. You can't say it's 100 grand, 500 grand, a million. It depends on the product. It depends on the market. It depends on the market fit. All these things play in. Some people you have a great product and whatever you do is going to work. It's going to be perfect. Sometimes the marketing is going to be more of a challenge. But what we do say is, using an agency at the right time. So when you're hitting the values like Eka said, I think using an agency will help you move on the next level. Look at how to make better use of any marketing budget, and utilizing the teams to take you on to the next level.
Is it a question for you, Adam? Is it best for someone to go to an agency and say, we specialize in automotive, you should come to us? But then all your clients are automotive. You're like, well, how do I differentiate? You're competing against your other client. Or actually, is it like, does an agency say, look, we're exposed to all different markets. We have expertise in all different markets. We might have 2 or 3 in one, so we can give you expertise or what work well for those. Where's the sort of like draw the line between offering secrets from competitors, or maybe go into a specialized agency that only specialize in fast fashion, as an example, but then you've got them as competitors and all that sort of stuff? How does all that work?
Yeah, I mean, Neil, look, the world is a politically unstable place at the moment, and you're trying to create World War III with this question, because this is very divisive. Now, I'll give you my 2 pence on this. The line that I would take on here is that us as an agency, as a CRO agency, we generally work with kind of 3 or 4 different industries: health and beauty, vitamins and supplements, pet food, because there's a subscription element to it, and food and beverage. Now, the argument there is like we have some expertise in each of those, but ultimately with CRO, it's all driven from what customers are doing on that site. So if customers tend to navigate away from a particular page, or they exit on another part of the site, or they don't click on a particular button, it doesn't matter if it's a coffin, and yes, we work with a coffin company called Titan Casket, go and check them out, or it is one of our, very fancy drinks companies that we work with. So my kind of take is, if you are working with an agency, particularly on here, I think on CRO, it shouldn't really matter which brands they've worked with. I think the problem is, like, sometimes that industry expertise is really useful. And I think particularly around SEO, PPC, there is more relevancy there of working with someone who's worked with multiple clients in the area, because the way you write something, the tone, the subject matter expertise to write that copy, write that content, I think is important. But it's like, if anyone is kind of into like sort of big advertising space, or these big advertising agencies, you always see these massive blue chip enterprise companies moaning because they will go, for example, you think about Christmas adverts on TV in the UK, you always see in November, December, very similar adverts happening for lots of different companies. And the reason being is because they all go to big ad agency companies, they're pitching that type of ad to multiple companies, and multiple guys select it. So that's my concern about just going to an agency that just does that one particular niche. So yeah, I've got my boxing gloves on. Who's ready? Chris, I'm interested in what you think of this one, mate.
No, I think it's a really good question, to be fair, because we come across it quite a lot, offering like multiple services. We do some CRO, we do SEO, we do PPC. We'll get a customer and they'll say, we want to come because we've seen you do this work for this company. So they follow the company. We grew out of that. We did a lot in fashion and footwear because they saw us win one footwear retailer, and then we just kept getting loads of them. I think both points are right, Adam. I think one, especially in CRO world, the principles are the principles. I think you can use them on multiple different sites, and it's test and learn. And so the skilled individuals you have will use the skills on different sites and learn different things. I also think in some cases it is very useful having like a PPC team who've done PPC on footwear, because they know the shortcuts, they know what's going to work, they know how to get you there quicker. I always say, like, internally or externally, it's about bringing the right talent in. So if you bring the right talent, they're going to get you there quicker. And I think in an agency, it's the same thing. Like, some of these channels will get you the results quicker than a non-specialist or non-experienced agency. But, that's why everybody uses case studies, right? And say, look, we have done this for your vertical. Yeah, so therefore more people will come. So I think it's case by case. There's in agencies for us, and I'm sure Adam, you've done the point, we might turn work away. We might say, look, I'm sorry, we can't work with you because we work with X company, and that's the conflict. So you could always ask those questions, and we get asked that quite a lot. How we manage that is, if we have one company and there's a similar, we would split the teams up. So we wouldn't let them overlap and work on the same accounts, because it's not really quite cool. But the teams in general would still have the experience and the understanding, but we would keep them away from each other. So I think it's case by case, especially in the CRO, where, like you said, Adam, like the teams I'm sure could do a lot more, because it's testing principles, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, there's competitors and there's competitors, right? It could be British Gas and EDF, you're like, fair enough, but it could be a small Nike against a small sort of like trainer brand is completely different. So I
think as well, Neil, very quickly, that's what separates the good agencies from the best agencies, into how they deal with those kinds of things. Like, I think when thinking about utilizing agencies, you should always go down the route of looking at what you need first, and then look at the similar use cases, and then how that agency deals with the questions around what they've done with previous clients. Like, Chris has just made a really good example of what makes a great agency, where they'll say, well, you're not going to get the exact same team because that would be the wrong thing for us to do, but the team has got a wider expertise. So I think for anyone that is looking into potential agencies, looking for those signs of what they're talking about with you, of, are they talking about your business and what you want to achieve and the actual things that they can do for you, or are they just shouting about the case studies that they've done because they did some really good work on one thing that they might have done a tiny piece out of, and they're really leaning back on that. So I think that's a really important, how Adam and Chris have described it is exactly how great agencies describe that question. So I think that's the kind of thing that you take away if you're discussing with agencies.
It's so easy though. We all do it, right? So we all look at our competitor. We want to be a little bit like them. You know, they're doing this great. You know, they have the same troubles as you do, but you never think about the negatives of what they're going through. You always think, I want to be a little bit like them. And we do it in the review world. And I know that Chris, you know, it was in the platform world as well, right? It's something that you always do. You look at towards where. Eka, tell me about your, like, because what I'm keen to know is like, because we're going to have a lot of drop shippers, entrepreneurs on the call. And they're gonna be like, well, what's the next thing that's going to really sell really well? You know, where can you find that? Is it Google Trends? Is it like a AliExpress? What do you do, Eka, when you identify a product that you want to sell and a market? What did you mention earlier? Good product market fit. So,
Yeah.
what sort of things have you done? I know it's in your speech. So,
yeah, good question. Yeah. So, I mean, the landscape has changed a lot since I started 5 years ago. So in 2020, I mean, you literally could have picked any product, and if you did good enough marketing, you could have made money with it. So that's what I did. Like my first brand was an air purifier brand, and I promise you, I picked it completely out of random, just out of thin air, just out of nothing. And I wanted to make it work, and I did. Today, the landscape is definitely much more difficult. So you have to be more careful about how you choose your products. Now, how I do things is you can look on AliExpress, you can look on those things. What I actually did a lot of was look at store leads. So if you don't know, store leads is a great tool. Basically, it gives you, it's a huge database of basically every single Shopify store that there is. And it gives you some kind of an approximation of the sales that they have and the visitors that they have. So you can use that as a yardstick of how well a product is selling. And then the question I always ask myself is, can I sell this product better than how they're selling it? So I look for products which have sales and have validation, but I can do something a bit better. Now, this used to be years ago. I don't do that anymore. I just start my own brands from scratch, let's say, but that's something you can do. Today, honestly, what's super important is lifetime value. So the days are gone of being like profitable on the first order like that easily. Like it's very difficult. So today I'm always looking at products that have lifetime value. So it has to be either something consumable that, you know, somebody uses and they order again, or something which has complementary products, right? So for example, I have a hair care brand. That's my biggest brand actually. And obviously that's consumable. So the lifetime value is very big on that. But you can also have, for example, a jewelry brand, fashion brand, right? It's not consumable, but you can buy complements to it, right? So lifetime value, LTV, is super, super, super important today. And like it's very hard to be profitable without having a proper LTV, because my first brand used to be an air purifier brand, and basically my LTV was my AOV. And sorry for the acronym. So my lifetime value per customer was the same as my average order value, which means that whatever they paid on the first order, that's what they paid over the lifetime, right? But right now, my lifetime value per customer is like 3 times or let's say 2.5 times the average order value, because people come back and buy more. And as I said, we are in a marketing-driven revenue space, and so what you spend on customer acquisition is super important to make it go a long way. Because when you spend something on a customer acquisition, you know, you spend that once, right? So on the first order, you have your CAC, but on the second order, third or fourth, it's basically free, right? So that's something I always look at: lifetime value of a product. Can I sell more of these, or are there complements I can sell with them? That's super important today.
And that's important that you've got the right tools to be able to identify those customers and get them to come back, right? So like reviews and email, loyalty programs, all that sort of stuff, Eka, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, reviews are super important for acquisition. Like that's honestly, if you had to install one app, you should install a review app. In this case, Judge.me, of course. You should definitely install a review app. Honestly, I mean, even before A/B testing app, because that's just like super important. And there are other tools as well which are essential. But yeah, I mentioned store leads. I highly recommend that. Even if you're not trying to start a new product, it's very useful to see what others are doing, what they're selling, what's going well, and so on. And there's a bunch of other tools, and that's honestly, that's the number one upside of Shopify is, as I mentioned, I have also so much good things to say about Shopify. And one of the best things is the App Store, right? Because you can plug and play so many different things depending on what you need. So that's really great. So yeah, tools are also important, as you said, Neil.
Cool. Quick question. How can a store identify if their growth problem is traffic or if it's conversion? Maybe Adam, for you, Chris, one of you for that.
Chris, you can take this one.
I thought you were going to jump on that one. How can they understand if it's traffic or conversion?
So are they getting they were like, wow, okay, well, actually the conversion rate. So what would an average conversion rate be for, say, maybe, I don't know, health and beauty? And it's like, well, actually, we've got a nice, healthy conversion rate. So we're doing good stuff online, but I'm still not making any money. So it potentially is a traffic one. How can they identify what they should spend their money on? Is it more traffic, or is it actually converting the traffic that's coming to their store? Or is it bad traffic and actually they need to go and look for better traffic and then the conversion rate will come after?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of why I asked that question, because you need to know what the sector is, right? And there's not one conversion rate. You can't go, look, yours is 5%. And if I said that, I'd be just giving bad advice. So definitely pushing back on that one, Neil. But yeah, conversion rate per sector, per product, per price, and you need to understand that. But you can get a gauge, right? So this is why you use agencies like Adams, and they can go, look, if your conversion rate this bucket, you're doing okay. Therefore, it's a traffic and acquisition problem, and it's which channels are working. Like Ika said, and I think now acquiring traffic is more difficult than it's ever been. When I started out, it was relatively straightforward. There was Google and a bit of shopping, and that was kind of it. Now there is so many different channels, more channels popping up all of the time. It's a complicated market to figure out where you should be looking, what's working and what's not working. Some brands will find something on TikTok works, and some will work better on Meta. You've got to leverage the right channels and look at it that way. To see which of that traffic then converts. So I think start with conversion rate, understand where that fits in your marketing, pricing, and product, and then it's a traffic.
If I can quickly jump in, and I have very strong feelings about conversion rate as a metric. It doesn't say much to me, like in general, to see what a store's conversion rate is itself. I mean, you can definitely use conversion rate when you're A/B testing something to see like what's working better for sure. But in general, first of all, conversion rate as a metric, people define in different ways depending on what kind of traffic they're considering, what they're not considering, and it can be different by product, by store, by industry. So it's very hard to look at conversion rate as a single metric and assess something. So I always look at the funnel as a whole. So starting from for me, the most important metrics are LTV and CAC, and that's it. Like LTV, how much margin you generate per customer over the lifetime, and how much you pay to acquire that customer. And then everything else is just a subset of that to me. So just wanted to quickly give my two cents about that. I'm not sure if Chris, you agree with the conversion rate conversation.
That's why I answered it not as articulate as you did there.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think you made a great point. That's why I want to jump in quickly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll just kind of chime in very quickly. So I think, look, in terms of benchmarks and sim UR, I think that's a really useful thing to do. I've just dropped in a link in the chat as well, which is a little tool that we built on our site, which kind of shows you where you compare against your competitors. But I think in terms of that question about, is it a traffic or a conversion problem? I'll give you sort of the way that we think about it is that in order to do A/B testing for statistical significance, you need about 50,000 visitors a month. So that's quite a sizable, obviously, level of traffic. When you get to about 30,000 visitors, you may start to infer something relatively significant, but not quite. I think at 10,000 visitors per month, you are starting to see a little bit of behavior that you can sort of start to model. So I think having someone look at your site at that level and say, look, in terms of best practices, you should do these things in terms of CRO. That's a good way of actually starting off with conversion optimization. When you get up to those bigger heights, then it's worth actually putting the cash into an A/B testing tool to really kind of then try and eke some more cash out. But I think this is the thing. And look, a lot of people approach say, look, we want to do A/B testing. They've maybe got sort of 5,000, 6,000 visitors a month. My answer is always the same: just keep getting more traffic to that site. Eke traffic up, eke traffic up, eke traffic up. Get something like Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity. Microsoft Clarity is free. It's a heat mapping tool that will show you what people are doing on site. Keep learning, keep seeing things, try things, test things. And then when you get to a bigger level, then invest in it properly.
And Adam, would you find like in those cases where they're not ready for CRO, 50,000-ish,
Yeah.
you or the team would be able to make some like standardized recommendations of best practices? Because I think like there are always going to be things where somebody could scan a site and go, you're missing having Apple Pay and Google Pay, for example. It's going to improve conversion rate. So even though they don't need A/B testing, there's probably a suite of recommendations, which is, I'm not going to say universal, but relatively across most websites.
Chris. Yeah, and that's the approach we take. Is that look, when we're in that scenario, we're very upfront to look, saying we can't use the data here and then do A/B testing, but we can see from your site there are core things that you're not doing, like exposing search on mobile, for example, which always improves conversion and average order value, or like you say, payment options. Have you looked at if you look at your PayPal, Klarna, whatever it might be, which of those different payment methods yields the most profitable customer? Use that as the express checkout option on your PDP. Stuff like that, you can just do whenever, really.
And am I right in Sam that what Adam just said about the different payment options and different delivery options might be a conversion rate thing as well? These are all things that you can do with Shopify, right? These are all stuff that you can plug into Shopify.
Yeah.
The different payment options like Apple Pay, Klarna, PayPal, all these sorts of things.
Yeah, super simple to do. I think the two things I'll add to that is like Adam and Chris and Ika just kind of spoke about, like, know where your data is and get as much data into your wherever you're putting it as possible, but also get everything in all in one place. There's so many brands out there that I speak to, maybe that are multi-brand, that have got like, oh yeah, we know what this is, but then that's got a different number, and then it's that, like, harnessing that from day one so that it's all in one place is going to make your life so much easier in the long run. But then also I replied into the chat from someone about some potential ideas. Sidekick is a tool that's really advancing for entrepreneurs specifically in the last few months, and will continue to do so over the coming months and years. Sidekick, we're positioning Sidekick as your co-founder. So that is a tool at the top right of your Shopify admin that you can dive into. It looks like a little hero, little superhero, and you can prompt it as if you were prompting ChatGPT and ask it questions, ask it every single question that it possibly comes into your mind, utilize it as much as possible in your early days, and it'll provide recommendations for you. A good example of when we're coming up to Black Friday, for example, you can go into the Sidekick and ask it to pull your figures from last year, if you've got figures from last year, so that you can compare and start building out. It's a super, super helpful tool that requires no additional investment from you other than just talking to it, and can come and actually make recommendations and implement recommendations in your Shopify admin as well.
Wow, Becky's just on the chat saying Sidekick generated images for her yesterday.
Wow.
Right, I've got probably time for a couple of questions. This one's from Johnny. He said, for a small apparel brand starting out, how important is ad spend versus organic growth versus social media? Should I have to spend a big amount of money initially to verify if the product is landing and trust it is reaching the right audience? Or is there value on trying to grow slower by trying to grow your niche audience on socials but risk wasting time? Chris, can you see that question? Because I know it's quite.
I'm impressed that people have been doing questions and answers. I've just been sat here like listening and taking it all in. You guys have been answering.
I can't do two things at once, Chris. Either.
I was like, I didn't do one. I haven't answered any questions at all. Ika, do you want to jump and do that one, mate? That sounds like very much a your question, I thought.
Honestly, it's a bit difficult because I've never done a fashion brand, so I can't. Okay. I think it's have you worked with fashion brands before, Chris?
Yeah, we've done a lot of fashion brands, and I'm trying to answer the question. So I think organic growth through Google and stuff is it's very, very difficult now. From the pure play SEO organic side, we know domain authority is huge, and having long established brands is key. So jumping into a decent position in Google is going to be difficult. So it has to be acquisition channels. And probably starting, especially with a fashion brand, is social first. I would always go social first with those type of brands. Like I've already said, Google, we're seeing massive increases in cost per click over the last few years. It keeps going up and up. So I'd be doing social channels, Meta, TikTok, are the places to be. If this is an own brand product, I would be starting there and testing, learning, and then moving out into the other channels. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, seeing a lot of, TikTok is blowing up in that space, particularly Meta, Instagram, Pinterest. There's a lot of, again, back to my earlier point, there's a lot of channels, so you need to understand which ones work and how to spend that money. But yeah, I would definitely go social first for a fashion brand.
Yeah, the one value I would add from my side, because I have never done fashion brand before, is that definitely compared to other niches, it's one which is least functional, right? So when I do my ads and my marketing for my air purifier brand or whatever it may be, it's always about features, benefits, right? And when it comes to fashion, it's definitely much more on the emotional side, right? So that's why I would say put more effort on the social side and also on how you brand your brand, because that's more of an emotional decision that people purchase with, rather than like explaining how it works in an ad, which I would usually do with my other brands. So I think, that's the one thing I can say about fashion. It's just less functional.
I think a fashion brand comes all the way back to where we started from as well. It's like, it's all the photography. It has to be lifestyle. You have to have to get the emotion.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of user-generated content. So we're going to bring this back to reviews, but you're going to need like people of wearing those products. A fashion brand is difficult to break into, so you need those use cases. Just putting a product up with no reviews, people might not look to buy it because it's got no credibility. Startup brands, you need to get people reviews wearing the product to offer that credibility very quickly, in my opinion. So how do you do that? Going out and reaching out to people to do that going to help you grow more quickly.
I guess one thing that's for social media is, there is those influencers now that you can go to. I know one up. I think it's a brand up. Maybe it's the Northwest. Is it Castor? They started that way, didn't they? They got like sort of semi-famous influencers into their clobber. Clobber for all the Americans is close, and then grew that way. Adam, you were going to jump in with something.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if anyone here has recently started a clothing brand, I would say pause for a second, because I think there's two things here. If it's a general clothing brand, like a clothing brand for men, that's going to be bloody hard to get anywhere with. But can you repurpose the brand that you come up with, or if you're dropshipping, what it might be, to be, for example, a clothing brand for bigger men? Can it be a clothing brand for paddle, which is very popular in the UK and is growing? So trying to get more of a niche on what that clothing is for, and then equally in terms of marketing, starting out marketing, creating a social profile that isn't the business. So for example, like if it was a men's paddle clothing thing, and I was going to do that right now, I would be starting a social account about paddle in general, build up a community on that, start a newsletter which basically sends out people paddle events that are happening all over the country, paddle locations, get paddle companies to pay to be on it, and then once you've got that up, bang, right, here is my company, here is the paddle company for you with men's t-shirts, and go that route. So that will be my advice now, 25, end of 25 into 26, go more niche if you really want to make sure you can get some traction there.